Dr. Michael Reynolds had built his life around one belief: if he worked hard enough, he could protect the people he loved from pain. As one of the most respected cardiothoracic surgeons at St. Matthew's Medical Center in Boston, he lived inside operating rooms, intensive care units, and conference halls. His hands were steady, his judgment precise, his reputation nearly flawless. Patients called him a miracle worker. Colleagues called him unstoppable. At home, however, there was a silence he did not know how to operate on. He met Olivia Brooks 12 years earlier at a charity fundraiser for the hospital. She was not impressed by titles or reputation. She was a high school art teacher, passionate about creativity and fiercely independent. When they were introduced, Michael expected polite small talk. Instead, she challenged him within minutes. "So," she said with a playful smile, "you fix hearts for a living. Do you ever listen to them?" He laughed. "Every day. I mean emotionally," she clarified. That question lingered longer than he expected. Their relationship grew quickly but deeply. Michael was drawn to Olivia's warmth and honesty. She admired his discipline and dedication. He would leave the hospital after long shifts and drive straight to her tiny apartment, where she would have dinner waiting and music playing softly in the background. They talked for hours about everything: his patients, her students, their dreams of a future house with big windows and laughter echoing in the hallways. When he proposed, it was on a quiet beach during a weekend getaway. No dramatic gestures, just him, nervous and sincere. "I can't promise I won't be busy," he told her honestly. "But I promise you'll always matter." She believed him. The first year of marriage felt balanced. They moved into a modern condo overlooking the Charles River. Olivia filled the walls with paintings and warm colors. Michael brought home stories of survival and resilience from the hospital. They stayed up late watching movies, arguing about books, cooking together badly but laughing anyway. Then opportunity arrived. Michael was offered a leadership role in the surgical department. It was the kind of career advancement doctors waited decades for. He accepted without hesitation, believing it was a step forward for both of them. That was when the distance began. Longer hours turned into overnight absences. Emergency surgeries replaced dinner dates. Conferences replaced vacations. Olivia adjusted at first. She left notes on the refrigerator. She stayed awake past midnight waiting to hear his key in the door. "It's temporary," he would say, kissing her forehead while scrolling through emails. But temporary stretched into years. She stopped waiting up. The condo that once felt alive grew quiet. Michael rarely noticed. When he did, he told himself this was the price of excellence. He was building security, stability, a future free from financial fear. One evening, he came home after a 16-hour shift to find Olivia sitting on the floor surrounded by unfinished canvases. "You forgot," she said softly. "Forgot what?" he asked, exhausted. "Our anniversary." He froze. He genuinely had not remembered. "I'm sorry," he said, dropping his bag. "It's been chaos at work." "It's always chaos at work," she replied. Her voice was not angry. It was tired. He reached for her, but she gently pulled away. "I feel like I'm competing with your hospital," she admitted. "And I'm losing." "You're not competing," he insisted. "This is for us." "Is it?" she asked quietly. The question unsettled him more than any accusation could. Weeks later, Olivia stopped mentioning anniversaries, birthdays, or plans. She stopped asking when he would be home. She began spending more time at school, volunteering for extra projects, hosting art workshops on weekends. Michael noticed the change but misinterpreted it as independence. At the hospital, his career soared. Articles were published under his name. Interviews requested his expertise. He began mentoring younger surgeons. Every achievement felt like climbing higher. At home, however, he felt a strange emptiness he refused to examine. One winter night, during a snowstorm, he received a call from a neighbor. Olivia had slipped on the icy sidewalk outside their building. By the time Michael reached the emergency department, she was awake but pale. A fractured wrist. Mild concussion. He stood beside her bed, staring at the monitors, feeling a deep wave of guilt. "I tried calling you," she said gently. "But it went to voicemail." He checked his phone. 12 missed calls. He had been in a board meeting. I'm here now, he said, though the words felt hollow. She looked at him carefully. You're always here eventually, she replied. Just not when I need you most. The sentence echoed in his mind for days. After she returned home, something shifted. Olivia became polite, calm, almost too calm. She no longer argued. She no longer cried. She simply adjusted. Adjustment, Michael would later realize, can be more dangerous than anger. Months passed. One evening, he found divorce papers neatly placed on the kitchen counter. His hands trembled as he picked them up. Olivia stood near the window, staring at the city lights. Is this real? He asked, his voice barely steady. I don't want to hate you, she replied. And I feel like if I stay, I will. He felt as though the air had been removed from the room. I love you, he said desperately. I know, she answered. But love without presence feels like abandonment. He tried to defend himself. To explain the pressure, the expectations, the responsibility of holding lives in his hands. Words poured out, about fear of failure, about growing up in a struggling household, about never wanting his family to feel unstable. I thought if I succeeded enough, he admitted, everything else would be safe. And I thought if I loved you enough, she whispered, you would choose me. The silence between them was no longer sharp. It was heavy and final. They separated quietly. The condo felt cavernous without her laughter. Michael threw himself even deeper into work, as if the operating room could drown the ache. But grief has a way of surfacing. One afternoon, while performing a complex bypass surgery, his hands faltered slightly for the first time in years. Just for a second, but enough to frighten him. He realized he was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. After the surgery, he sat alone in his office and stared at a photo on his desk, Olivia smiling, paint on her fingers, sunlight in her hair. He had believed success would guarantee happiness. Instead, it had cost him the person who made success meaningful. Weeks later, he asked to meet her. They sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. She looked different, not changed, just steadier. I don't want to sign them yet, he said honestly. She studied his face. Why? Because I finally understand what I did, he replied. I treated our marriage like it was indestructible. Like it didn't need maintenance. She listened but did not soften immediately. I'm in therapy, he continued. I've reduced my hours. I turned down a national leadership role. She looked surprised. You did? Yes. Because I don't want to keep winning everywhere except at home. Tears welled in her eyes, but she held them back. I can't promise I'll come back, she said carefully. I've learned how to live on my own. I'm not asking for promises, he answered. Just a chance to show up. Rebuilding trust was not dramatic. It was slow and fragile. They began with coffee once a week. Then dinner. Then walks through the park where they used to talk about everything. Michael listened more than he spoke. He attended her art exhibition. He left his phone in the car. He asked questions and stayed for the answers. Olivia watched carefully. She was no longer willing to settle for potential. She wanted consistency. Months passed before she agreed to move back home, not because she needed him, but because she saw effort sustained over time. Their marriage did not return to what it once was. It became something different, more honest, less idealized. They argued sometimes, but they no longer avoided uncomfortable conversations. Michael learned that saving lives at work did not excuse neglect at home. Olivia learned that ambition was not betrayal, as long as it did not erase partnership. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, the city humming below them, Olivia rested her head against his shoulder. I used to feel trapped, she said softly. In what? He asked. In loving someone who wasn't really there. He closed his eyes. I was trapped too, he admitted. In proving myself to the world. And now I'm trying to prove myself to the person who matters most. She didn't respond with grand declarations. She simply intertwined her fingers with his. For the first time in years, the silence between them felt peaceful. Michael still walked into operating rooms every day. He still carried the weight of responsibility. But now, before leaving the hospital, he paused. He sent a message, made a call, showed up, because he finally understood something no medical textbook had ever taught him. A heart can survive surgery. But a marriage cannot survive neglect. And love, if left unattended, can become the most painful cage of all.